Oh my gosh, I am so excited for our guest today. Actually, a friend of mine asked who would be a dream guest, and I said Jamie Varon. And here she is, Jamie Varon on the Peripeteia podcast. Thank you for joining us. Jamie is an author. You're like my dream come true because you wrote Radically Content, was the first book that I read, which is like, how would you describe this book? Like
Self-help memoir
yeah,
kinda book.
yeah. Okay. I was like, self-help, but it's like better than self-help. And then you also wrote a fictional book, which is like the transition I think every writer wants to do. And that was so fun. Such a fun read. I totally loved it. And now you've got your third book out, The Alchemist. Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah,
Fresh off the press, really. And that's a different sort of book. That's back to like it's self-help essays, maybe poetry.
yeah, it's, essentially like my Instagram posts, like short vignettes. There's like 180 of them, so 180 days. It's to me, that's like more of a completion of that part of my life of writing these like vignettes on how I've been healing and working through certain things. So I just wanted to compile that into a book and have that live off of social media. Even though I love social media, I feel like the temporal nature of it really, as an artist, as someone who loves books, I was like, I want this to exist in a more permanent form.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure you came across my feed and that's how I found you via social media. So God bless Instagram for that. But this book more like a daily devotional almost.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
meditation
daily
sort of like that.
devotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to get it. It's making its way to me right now. So I love it because there's so many things that we could talk about. You have so many topics that you've covered in all these books. And when I asked you, it's like the thing coming up for you right now is this releasing self-doubt and
Yeah.
having self-belief, which is the thing we're all working on, I think, whether we use that language or not. So, can you share a little bit of your personal journey around like discovering and cultivating your self worth? I know it hasn't always been there, but you're growing it currently.
Yeah. I would say that like self-doubt has just been the pervasive feeling in my life since I was as conscious as possible to my feelings and what was going on. I look back in retrospect to being a teenager and it was like, oh, it was hesitancy and self-doubt and thinking that someone else somewhere needed to affirm me. Like, I was lovable if someone was interested in me, or I'm good enough if I get, an opportunity, especially like in high school, I wasn't that into school, but when I got to college, that's when I think like my addiction to achievement began. Cause like in high school and middle school, I mean, I was a burnout student. Like I was just bad at school. I had no attention span. I was so bored. Like it was so boring to me. But then when I got to college, I was like, oh, now I can actually pursue things that are interesting to me. And I think that's when my attaching self-worth to my achievements and how kind of like impressive I could be to, I worked on campus. I had to get, I put myself through college. So I had to get like on campus jobs, work study programs. And so, when I started getting attention and getting like good jobs for my age and, adults were telling me, oh my God, you're so smart. You're so good at this. It was like, oh, I was filling up. Okay. So other
Mhm.
people tell me I'm good enough. And then I collect it like little like knickknacks and talismans. And I just like hold those at night. Like I'm good enough. I'm good enough.
Stockpile them.
Right? Yeah, you
Little
stockpile them.
stockpiles. Yeah.
Confidence. I'm like,
Like
yeah,
compliments, flattery.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so
Gold
I think
stars and A pluses.
exactly. And I think that that was a slippery slope because of course, like it feels good to be acknowledged and appreciated. And so it's not like you're going to be like, no, don't say that to me. But it's about how much I bought into it as like, that is the way that I know I have value. And so that became self-doubt of like a roller coaster. If you're getting attention, you're getting those achievements, you're doing enough, you're constantly like innovating or then you're good enough, like to me,
Mhm.
And then when there's no attention and it's a slow time, then the doubt comes. And I just honestly, for a very long time, thought that's how you're supposed to be. Like, I didn't know that you could just personally decide, like, I'm good enough. And I
Mm.
believe in myself. Like, I just was so fixated on how people were perceiving me externally. I don't know. Probably could figure out why, but it just was. And so, when I started to it was about, I would say, like, 2017, 2018, 2019. I think the catalyst was maybe 2016. I started to just go, I'm never going to achieve enough to hit that moment where I'm just like, okay, I believe in myself. Or like,
Mm.
okay, I'm good enough. I've hit the point. Like, I had done so many impressive things, and I was looking at my stockpile and going, "Why is that still not enough? What else can I possibly do?" And then in my mind, it was like, "Well, you haven't had book deals, so you need book deals." And then I got book deals, and it still wasn't that. And I was just like, so this idea of self-belief became such an important part of, what I wanted to cultivate. Um, first it was like self-love, self-trust, and now it's like just this unshakable self-belief. And I started kind of studying people that I really admire, like especially creatives that I really admire. And the through line of every story is like they were told no, and they just didn't let it deter them. You know, they were not always given the open road. Most creatives aren't. And they had to go into their reserves of self belief, even in the face of rejection, disappointment, failures, any of this. And I just thought, I was like, how do you do that? Like,
Mm.
how do you do that? Because to me, everything was a blow, was either like a puffed up confidence or a blow. And so I was like, how do I get to that belief in myself? And that's just been the journey that I've been on because to me, I thought for so long the antidote to my self doubt was like, okay, achieve enough, get enough,
Mm.
become enough. Like,
Mm.
let the world tell you finally that you're good enough. And so you get like the followers, you get the attention, you get the opportunities, you get all the things. And then you're like, oh my God, what a disappointment that it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And it's wonderful in its own way, but it's not a long lasting, you're just never going to feel doubt or question yourself ever again. So now I'm like, I embrace the doubt. I embrace my self doubt as a means of, okay, I'm doing a new thing. Like, that's a scary thing to me, is doing a new thing, or perhaps even like failing in public, or having things not go the way that I expected. And people see it. Like, that's hard for me. Um, and I like being in control. But when you like being in control, sometimes you can control your environment too much that you stay very, very safe and you don't take risks. Um, so to me, it's like self-belief is essentially being kind of fearless. Because when you are at the whims of your self-doubt, oh my God, you just can't, there's your life becomes so restricted. You live in a restricted state because you don't want anything to ever not go the way that you expect. So that's been the massive journey that I've been on, especially when, like, when you talk about the books that I've had come out, which is such a lovely thing. It really made me dig deep though, of like believing in myself because it's there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of authors out there. There's a lot of ways to compare. It's unbelievable how many ways you can compare on so many different metrics. And you have to just stay so centered in your belief. And it is tricky to do. So that's been my thing because I don't want my belief in myself to be like like connected to book sales or something. That
Okay.
just seems like, I've seen too many authors who they might have an amazing success of a book and then the next one might not. And then the next one is, and then the next one, it's like you really can't put that all the eggs in that basket. So that's been the work and the self-doubt. I really changed my relationship to it instead of letting it just rule my life for so long. So it's very cool. And the more that I talk about it, it's like such a sticky subject because people don't really want to admit that they have doubt in themselves. Like,
Mm.
and the more that I talk about it, I find that people get very liberated in me discussing it, especially people who perceive me as the type of person now that would maybe not be feeling self-doubt. That, "Oh, she's made it," you know? And it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, but it still doesn't take away every feeling that, I could ever it doesn't mean that I now just float on a cloud of complete certainty. Like, in fact, any kind of success almost brings more uncertainty, and it's more messy and scary, and, that was an interesting thing to recognize too. So it's been a journey. It's been a really interesting, interesting journey.
Thank you for your honesty. I love it. I hear so much of what you're saying. I relate to it. It's interesting because this journey of yours aligns exactly with my sober journey, which is just stop reaching outside yourself for the cure and start
Okay.
going within. So it's so our topics are different, but it's so similar. It's reaching for that outside affirmation versus cultivating something internally with yourself. I'm wondering when you're talking about your growing up years, let's say, and that you were a burnout student, I think you called yourself.
Yeah.
Were you bad behaved? Were you bored or were you acting out because you were bored or were you just there maybe not performing at your best because it didn't keep your attention?
Definitely not performing at my best because it didn't keep my attention. And I was always like, why do I need to know this stuff? Like, why does any of this matter? I
Like
know, like, I don't know.
quadratic
I was like,
formula, it doesn't.
yeah, I know. And I think that
Yeah.
I was definitely too smart for my own good at that point. And like, nobody, I think because education wasn't really valued in my, like, parents. I mean, it's not like it was devalued, but it wasn't like something that they really put a lot of stock into, which in some ways, it's like some people will be like, "Oh, I wish my parents wouldn't put as much stock into it." It's like, well, there's a con to that too, that, no one took an interest or really seemed to notice that I was smart and struggling and not
Mm.
being like I wasn't able to really express those parts of myself. But I also had a ton of rebellion. I mean, I was definitely smoked and like, cut school and got up to some stuff and college was a lot. And, I was not a I had no interest in being like a good girl. Like, even
Okay.
it wasn't even like a question. I was like, "I don't want to be good. I wanna experience life. Will go a little wild." Even that, like, my parents were not strict. Like, my parents divorced when I was 2. And
Okay.
so yeah. Oh, really? My gosh, that's a fundamental life experience that, like, I actually don't think that I really understood how traumatizing that would be until I'd been around my niece, who's 2, and I'm like, I can't even imagine at her age, like, it's my older brother and my sister-in-laws, and, like, if they broke up and she had to be wrenched from this, like, familiarity, the routine, the comfort, and, like, I got they had the kind my parents had the kind of divorce where, like, I was carted off from house to house. It was not like dad on the weekends, every other weekend. Like, they fought over us. And so
Mm.
it like tense. I was always missing somebody. I was never like with the person. I was never with. all my people at once, you know?
You were homesick wherever you were.
Exactly, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. They're
Oh,
just homesick wherever you are because you don't have the cognitive ability to really understand what's happening. So I actually I had I gave myself so much more compassion after seeing my niece now and being so close to her. She lives, they live really close. So I see her all the time and I'm like, my God, I couldn't even imagine. Can't
you little you. Yeah, like you were a baby.
living
Mhm.
here. Like it's you don't know and you're like a person then. Like you're
Mhm.
I always assume I'm like, I was like a baby. I don't know. I just grew up like this. This was all I had ever known. But it's like, no, 2-year old me knew something. Like,
Oh, for sure.
you know? So anyway, that's a strange thing. How did it affect you? I mean, do you
It was kinda like the best thing that ever happened to me because my dad wasn't around anyways, so my mom got to rise up and do all the things, go back to school, it was like but yeah, it's traumatic, and I have kids, and I have 2 daughters, and they'll be in between my husband and I never had that, like, your mom and your dad both loving on you at the same time. You know
oh
what
my
I mean?
I know.
Being
They're
part of that unit.
exactly. I mean, I never had that. I never understood what that would be like. I remember because my mom and my dad are like friends now. We're all good. We sometimes will spend like Thanksgiving all together and stuff. And I remember a few years ago I was playing Scrabble with my mom and my dad, like just us.
Oh, yeah, you had that moment.
Yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is weird. Like, and I could tell, like, they're so removed from each other that I can't ever imagine them being together. But in that moment,
Yeah,
I was like, oh, we're like a
you
family.
had that feeling.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I think like some divorced kids who are being shipped off from house to house, and it's not a divorce where then you're with one, like a single parent.
Yeah.
Uh, I felt very through therapy, come to find, I felt very neglected.
Oh,
There's no, like, stability, and so it's just this, you know, constant not knowing where I am, nobody's taking any interest in what I'm doing, there's just not enough time, it's like, I'm 2 days here, and then I have to go to a different house for 3 days, and then I'm back to this house, and then my mom got remarried pretty soon after and then had another child who's my brother, and, so they had their own little, like, family, and, I was
got remarried and had my brother too.
oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh my god. Wow. Well, no wonder we're, like, connected and,
Yeah,
like,
right.
happy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you felt neglected, but you were wanted. They were fighting over you. You were wanted in both places, but
I
also they were
you're
distracted. No one was paying attention to you. Um, they needed time, but you were kinda getting lost in the shuffle, it sounds like, or they didn't have the capacity to be tending to your inner emotional needs, or what is coming out is, like, you were a creative to start, right? Like, you didn't fit the box or fit the mold, and your ideas were already different and rebellious, and that school life was the structure and the thing you had to shine, and you didn't because you weren't interested in it.
well, yeah, and, my mom tells this story, which is always just, like, one of our little things, is that when I was in elementary school, they wanted to put me in, like, the gifted program. They accepted me, and she, without even, like, talking to me, um, said no because she didn't want me to be different, and I'm like, "But I wanted to be different," you know? Like, I felt a part,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
You
So it was
were.
like
You already were. Yeah.
exactly. So it's like
Yeah.
you could have put me somewhere that would have actually
We're
worked
all different
my
over
benefit.
here.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
then I would be, like, with like-minded people
Mhm.
instead of feeling like, "Why don't I fit in? Why can't I be like everyone else?" This has been a pervasive feeling throughout my life, so it's very interesting that, I don't hold anything against my mom. She was
Right.
doing what she thought was best, but that's another, example of, like, not being really tuned in, and
Yeah.
so if you're with me all the time, or it would be clear that I would need that stimulation. So yeah, it was just very interesting how that I did start to rebel because I was just like, I'm like bored, you
Yeah.
know? I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not and I'm like too aware, I was just like, none of this matters. My grades don't matter. This is just like I just don't know how I knew all of that, but I did. So um, it was tough in that sense because it felt like nobody was really listening to me,
Mhm.
um, and paying any attention. So it's like, yeah, they were fighting over me, but it
Right.
wasn't like that meant I was getting a lot of focused attention. Cause also like my mom had my little brother who she put a lot of attention on because he was always sad that my older brother and I weren't there.
Mhm.
She didn't want him to feel like an only child.
Right.
And then my dad was really obsessed with my older brother and wanted him to play baseball. My dad's obsessed with baseball. And so I had to like go to baseball games and, like no one ever did anything I wanted to do. Yeah. And I was like so long and dirty. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about boring, but like a kid, you're trying to make the most of it and like please your parents and, so everything by the I will say though, by the time I got to college, I was like, "Get me out of here. Let me be my own person." Like, I blossomed for sure in a lot of ways. Like, I started to really but like I said, because of that, I'd been so starved for, like, attention and acknowledgement that it then getting all this attention in college from, like, the professors and, I was finally doing the things that I wanted to do, and I joined, like, these extracurricular activities, and they were like, "Oh my god, you're so impressive, and we want you at this job, and this job, and this job," and I was like, "Finally." But then it was like, now all your self-worth
Right.
is how impressive you can be and how smart you are and how much you can achieve, and it was like, didn't untangle that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. To your mom's credit, there's that like meme that says like whoever was in the gifted and talented program, like, how are you doing now? You're like high
Yeah.
achieving, people pleasing, perfectionism, like anxiety. It's like off the charts, right? But you kind of got that experience in college then. Like, I am gifted and talented. I am different and it's beautiful. It makes me special. It makes me, whatever, sitting at the top of the pyramid, whatever way that is. But
Right,
I
right.
have to have this feels good. I have to have this. I have to have this is proving my worth.
Yeah, it was the first time that I felt like I was my own person, and I
Ooh,
wasn't like, because my older brother, I was little Varon in high school, I was
cool.
his sister, and, there
You were an
cast a
early
big
teenager.
shadow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very and, like, there came a time where his friends became friends with my friends, and so it was like, I'm really not my own person, like, I don't know what my interests are even, you know?
I mean,
Uh,
might be baseball. I'm an avid baseball watcher.
and it turned out it's not baseball.
And I
I stopped. I'm like, "Oh, I don't." I went to college, I remember, and I was like, "I don't care about baseball at all." Like, I finally was able to be like, "I don't care about these same bands, like, I don't care about being this person, I don't care about this." It was it was great in that
trying to
sense.
find yourself. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you were one person under not somebody else's shadow or little sister.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said about when you bring up self-doubt, like maybe that makes some people bristle or they're uncomfortable with that because my first thought is like, definitely that's me since as far as I can remember, just my natural inherent thought is like, I am wrong. I'm bad and I'm wrong and I shouldn't be feeling the way I'm feeling. I should be some other way. Somebody else is doing it better than me. I'm not good enough.
Mm.
All of it be enough, right? In some way, like that is just for me sounds like the most natural, regular way of being. And I don't know why that I don't know if it's women, especially for women, if men are maybe raised in a different way, that they are think they're inherently right or good. And we're not, if that's a female thing or some other thing. And my mother adored me. I was the light of her light. I was just everything. I was special and loved and adored. And still, I just felt like I was bad and wrong, even though I was a good girl.
Right.
Saying you pushed against that. So you just had that too, since as far as you can remember. Like,
I I
you know,
would think it then. Yeah, I think it has to come from, like, patriarchal. I mean, it's if you even all it takes is, like, you have to look back just a couple decades, and it's like women were told they can't even function in work environments.
right.
You know,
Can't do
they
out,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah, like, we can't trust you with anything.
right.
Then there was, I remember my mom telling me that, like, even her mom, like, it was such a my grandfather was in a very abusive alcoholic, and it was, like, a huge deal for her to leave him, and, like, actually go and have any kind of career and make her own money. And
Mhm.
so, that's all my grandmother's still alive, and
It's
so that's
incredible that she did, because I think there's many people from that generation that didn't, because they couldn't see a way out. They couldn't be a single mom. They couldn't
no.
have couldn't have a bank account. They couldn't, so that's why it's amazing that my mom did, even because her mom wouldn't have been able to do that.
Exactly, and so it's like, sometimes I think we kind of forget. It's very easy to forget because we've like, "This is the world now," But, like, this has not been what it's
Right.
like even from generations that are still alive. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
"Yes, the
Right.
1800s."
That was history. Yeah.
Yeah, like, this was people are alive now that lived in a completely different world of what it meant to be a woman, what possibilities were available to them, all these things that just now we kind of maybe take them for granted. I know I do sometimes.
Mhm.
And I always have to pull it. That's why, like, I wrote Radically Content was because I felt like so many self-help books were like kind of blaming the
Mhm.
person, like, oh, what's your, like it's all on you that you like feel self-doubt or that it's like, actually, open a magazine that we used to read casually for entertainment, and it was like, shame on you, you're the worst, can't you get this together, what's wrong with you?"
5 tips to get guys to look at you. Right.
Exactly. Or even just look at, like, what we used to consume about female celebrities.
Mhm.
I mean, we unfortunately, we do something doesn't have to happen to us. This is something that I've had to really come to terms with. It doesn't have to happen to me for me to know that it happens.
Right.
And so if, like, every female celebrity is wrong or doing something wrong or they're being overly criticized,
Mhm.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna be overly criticized. So I need to control my behavior to figure out how to be different, how to not be wrong, how to not be broken. And I think the thing that why I said that talking about self-doubt, I didn't think a lot of people were for so long is because it's such a private shame.
Mm.
And people don't like to talk about shame, because it's you not only feel shame, but then you feel shame for feeling shame,
Right, and
you
then you're
know?
not supposed to feel that way, so that's also wrong. Right.
Exactly, right,
Yeah.
like, then there's
How do
something
you
wrong
if you
with
have
you.
self-doubt, that's on you. Go fix you. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so
I didn't know what to call it because I'm like, it's not, I guess I would say self-help genre, but also it's not. It didn't feel to me like, "Here's the 10 steps to self-improvement." Right? If you do
oh,
these things, you'll be better, and who's on the cover of that magazine, your worth is the way you look. And if you're this shape and this size and you have this hair and this color, then you are valuable. And if you're not that, you better read those 5 tips on how to get a guy's attention, because if you're not on the cover, are you valuable? What is,
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, we can never understate how much focus and fixation there is on how we look as women. And it's either you get points for certain things or points against you. And there is a point system because there used to be, like, lest we forget that Facebook started it because it was a hot or not.
hot or not?
Like,
Yeah,
we rank women on college campuses.
because our value is in our looks, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, that's a big part of it. I feel a little strange that that has can it's like almost like in 2024 we're like forgetting all of that. We're like we're going instead of saying like, "You know what? This is a real thing. There's beauty standards." It's almost like people maybe post lockdown pandemic went, "Well, there's beauty standards, so I'm just going to do whatever I can to hit them." Like, I'm gonna do and I don't blame people because you have one life, maybe it'll make your life easier, and God knows we might wanna make our lives easier right now, you know? And I think that we've gone in that direction of like, "Okay, I'm just gonna conform to the beauty standards then, because I wanna make my life easier, and I will." Like, I get it. There's
If my
pressure.
body looks this way, it'll fix my mental health is the hope,
Exactly.
probably, right?
And if I look good on TikTok, or if
No.
I have the face that is supposedly the ideal face for TikTok, and I do my makeup the right way that the girlies on TikTok tell me to do it, if I wear the exact clothes that I'm supposed to be wearing, and I look the exact way, then I'll be okay. And
That'll prove I'm good.
you down it.
That'll prove I'm worthy.
Mhm.
'Cause look at me,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But
I
it's
just
not
wanna
working,
be
it doesn't work. So what you
no.
that was your journey, you know? So you did get the affirmation in college, and then, I mean, you're a writer, which obviously is insane because who would want to be a writer? It's like the craziest thing you could do is to put yourself under that, make yourself write, and then publish. I mean, what the
And be
heck?
subjected to, like, every
Right.
opinions and yeah, I've always felt that that was a cruel joke for sure, and I've tried to
Consider before you were a writer? I mean, you were okay. Tell me about your like writing, publishing journey to that
yeah.
start putting it on paper and saying it out loud, and then letting other people see that, and then defining yourself by that as well.
A lot of starts and stops. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I've always been very afraid of both the financial probabilities and you know, uh, the opportunity, if it was there, if I was good enough, all the things. So it all kind of coalesced into I'm going to take a safer route. And I started doing design work because people just started seeing my designs and saying, "Do you do designs for people?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I, kind of fell into it a little accidentally back in like 2009. And then I just ended up designing for like a long time. I did websites, branding, but I always wanted to write, always was kind of, it was always there. Like I was either thinking about writing, being upset that I wasn't writing, getting mad at myself for not writing. Like it was always a thing.
Oh, well,
But yeah, we got a break.
hijacking your whole
Right.
headspace. But were you writing journals, or were you writing books? Were you starting and stopping with different writing projects, or
It was
writing
all
so
different. So for a while, I was blogging. Like for a long time, I had a blog, and then I would change the blog, and then I didn't want to do the blog, and then social media. Then I had a job where I was a full time writer for about a year at Thought Catalog, and then I thought, that's it. I'm going to be a writer now. That was back in like 2015, and I thought that's my career. I'm going to do it. And then I did some freelance writing, and then it was just so much stress trying to write on command, and then I still wasn't writing books, and so I went back to design and then took a year off writing and told myself I'm not gonna write until I can do it with joy again. Like, I was like, "That's it. I'm done pressuring myself," like and then all of a sudden it all came back, and then I would say about 2019 is when I was like, "Okay, I wanna get I wanna get a book out there." And then, of course, I didn't have a book come out till 2022 because, things don't happen instantaneously. I had to get my rejections out of the way and everything. But then I got my first book deal, and, weirdly enough, the the person who gave me the book deal came to me, which is very rare. So that was really interesting. And then I don't know. I think I just started focusing on being consistent. And I had enough proof in the past that like not writing was not a choice for me. It
Yeah.
caused me it causes me too much anguish, you know? It's like a calling. I can't stop it, you know? And I've tried to not do it. I've tried probably everything I could think of to not do it. And to me, I'm like, okay, it's just easier and better when I'm accepting that I want to write and following where I'm meant to be. And because it's a very sort of spiritual experience for me because it feels like I'm channeling. I don't know where it comes from.
Mhm.
I can't even outline like a novel. If I outline it, it's already dead. Like I can't do it. I'll be veering off in chapter one. It's just such a weird experience for me of like, I don't know how I get to the finish line with these novels or with these books,
Mhm.
but I do.
Mm.
So it's
And
just,
Jamie, I love this. I love it. I love it so much because I feel like I have it too. So I have to put it into practice. But I hear what you're saying and I know it. This very inconvenient thing.
yeah,
That's calling, but you have to do it. And I think Anne Lamott would say, like, you have to stop not writing, right? The way to write is to stop not writing. And so much resistance comes in. But it sounds like you made a decision then in like 2019 to write and to believe in yourself as a writer and not a writer as a job title for somebody else, but a writer that was going to write and publish something herself.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, not really publish myself because, well, I was thinking about it as like self-publishing for a little bit, but
I mean, get it published, get it out there.
yeah, get it
Just
published.
have it be a public
Yes, yeah,
document
yes.
versus a private document.
Oh yes, I understand what you mean. Yes, I always wanted to, but I didn't feel that I was capable of it. And for me, what's been hard, even though it sounds like it's a good thing, I've had a lot of encouragement and me not being able to like fulfill this dream was so painful, even though I was like, people believe in me. Like, I almost feel like I might have had more fire if I was like up against
Yeah,
someone you can't do this. And I was like,
'cause now they're expecting
well,
something good and you're the precious on, right?
yeah.
You think I'm good.
Then I'm like, oh,
No, it's a shitty first draft.
yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. And then you sit down, you're like, I'm a good writer. And then you sit down and it's like, the spot is blue. And you're like, oh my
A
God,
little crutch crab. I
yeah,
know.
it's horrible. It's
Yeah, I would
better in
never
my
read
head.
this book. Yeah.
I think
Can't
it's
any girl
starting.
could write this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, I wrote better things when I was 5, but okay. It's like horrible. But I guess where I got to was like, I'm it's just better to have things on the page than to think about it. Like I got so sick of one day I'll do this, one day. And it was like, there's never gonna be a perfect time. Like I'm never ever gonna have a trust fund.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
never ever gonna feel like,
So your
"Oh,
brother didn't become a baseball star.
no,
Important fun the whole family. Shoot, I'm so sorry.
I am unfunded. I'm unfunded.
Okay.
I never had any like I had, you know, just I've had to do it all pretty much myself. And so it's been there's like such a financial reality, especially that I feel like people ignore a lot or they like talk about it too much. And I'm like, okay, I'm aware that there's a reality here, but at the same time, I I just feel called to it. And
Mhm.
it's such a strong calling that, came to me so many years ago, like that I just have to I'll regret it if I don't give it 100%. And so that's the big reason why my focus has been on the self-belief because with self-belief, you can't really take like what's currently happening to heart. You have to have like a bigger vision and any creative work you do, it's going to take some build up time. And you never know. There's so much luck at play. It's like especially in publishing. I mean, some people their first book is a rocket launch. Some people it's like their 15th book. it is there's no predictability with it. Even I mean, I follow publishing industry so much, and even, like, the books that they put all their money into, they're like major deals, it's a big thing. I see them not some do well, some don't. Right now, we're in a situation where a lot of indie books are getting massive amounts of attention because and I'm sure and I know in publishing, people are like, "What do we do?" Like, they rejected that book,
Mhm.
and now it's
It's a
giving
crapshoot, basically.
it's a crapshoot. And
Yeah.
because of that, it's almost kind of freeing because 'cause you're like, you just never know. So you have to just the only way to be out of the game is to take yourself out of it. And so you
Mm.
just gotta keep moving forward and, you know, you just never know when it'll be the moment, and then you just gotta be ready. Like, I mean, I think that's a hard my brother did not end up going into baseball, but he is a music producer here in LA.
Even
Um,
better.
yeah, that's he
More
yeah.
enjoyable too to watch him in his hobby, I imagine.
Yes, exactly. I love the music he does, so it's, like, definitely a better thing than me sitting watching baseball. But I follow the music industry a lot too because of him and just because 'cause I'm fascinated by creative industries and especially creative industries where there's, like, the meeting of the art and the, consumer, like, how does it all work? And, there's just so many different ways for people to take off. There's such a luck factor involved, especially with music. And I feel like I kind of lost my train of thought for a second. But I think with all of this, you have to have that vision. And that's the thing that I've been working on the most is like really having this like ironclad vision and not letting myself get discouraged by like current how things are going currently, and, like, keep my eye on longevity, consistency. Like, ultimately, I've felt what it feels like to not honor this calling, and
Mhm.
it's not good. But then it's, like, also hard when you do honor the calling, but I'm like, "Which hard do I wanna
Yeah.
take?" Like, one really hurts where I don't honor it. The other one feels a lot better. So it's always this push and pull, and that self-belief is kind of the only thing that it gives me something to focus on outside of, well, what's happening right now? Am I good enough? Is it working? Is it working? And it's like you're waiting months for things to happen. Those are long months. If you're just like, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? Is it working yet?
Mhm. Am I there? Have I arrived? I love this. As a life coach, I love what you said about like the taking action is less excruciating than not taking action.
Yeah.
So just the act of acting, of doing something, of writing crap feels better than thinking about writing something that you're not writing. So it's the doing. And I love to take people from thinking about something to actually doing something. From listening to a podcast about sobriety to trying to go today without a drink. You learn by doing, not by like passively witnessing things. Those are great helpers and wonderful things for osmosis to have in your mind and great tools, but you actually learn by doing. So you actually become a better writer by writing, right? By putting words on paper. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not. And there's a lot of editing involved, I know. So to start is to start. And you've done that. I love that. And to not do it is an unlived life for you. I
Yeah.
mean, leaving something too big on the table that you was a calling. So you almost have no choice. You have to do it. And now you've committed to doing it. I love that. The other thing I'm hearing is like there is a little bit of like pound the stone, right? Like do it, keep doing it, and you have to like the process somehow and not just the results because I'm sure you hit a bestseller list and that doesn't let that feeling and that award or achievement doesn't last all that long.
Yeah.
But writing the book takes a lot longer than launch day. Yeah. Which over in
Absolutely.
a second.
This is something I think about a lot because to remind myself that the result is a tiny blip compared to the act of doing. And because I'm the same, for a long time, I existed in hesitancy and stagnancy and, okay, wait, I gotta be ready. I gotta be more ready. And when I started forcing myself to take action consistently, a whole world opened up to me where I was like, "Oh my God. So you don't have to be ready. You just do it."
Mhm. Yes,
Like you
nobody's ready
do it.
before you're ready.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Or you're
Start
ready.
before you're ready. Nobody's ready, and you don't have to get to a certain point before you make a complimentary call with me, let's say. Call me in the middle of your mess. That's when you need some help. We can start with that.
Exactly.
Someone's like, "I'm
Exactly.
going on vacation and I don't wanna drink. I think I'm gonna drink on vacation." Awesome. Call me anyways. Let's go ahead and
Right.
get started with
Right.
something.
Exactly.
You might not feel bit driven today. That's okay.
Well, I think people really think that because maybe movies, like, it's
Mhm.
all about these massive, like, rock bottom moments
Yeah.
and their whole life happily ever after. It all changes, and it's like, man, real life is so much slower than that. Like, and the thing is that that's what I mean, you took my course. Like, there's so many things that I talk about in that of like, you do one small thing a few times, you're already out of muck, and it
Yeah.
takes 3 days. It's not
Right.
you have people will look at it and go, "Well, how am I gonna, like, write a book or start this or not drink if I how am I
Mm.
gonna do that for a year?" And it's like, you only gotta do it right now,
Right.
and then
Put
do
one
it
word on
again.
paper. Now you have one more word
Right.
than you did before you just did that, right?
That's what got me writing was I was like well, actually what got me writing was in 2018, I had not been writing, and even when I had a full-time writing job, writing consistently was so hard for me. I didn't have the right mindset for it. So every single day I was like I would spend almost 7 hours of the day so mad that I wasn't writing and then write something in like 20 minutes
Yeah.
right at the end
Yeah.
because I was like and so what really got me into writing and thinking because I had to let go of this advice of like writers write every day. It's like, okay, well, I'm not get that's too much pressure on me. So
Mhm.
what really got me back into it was in 2018, I started writing a newsletter every Friday. And I made this the most light, glorious time of the week. Like at the time, I was actually in Europe, so it was really, really lovely. But it was
It
like,
really was glorious.
yeah, it was glorious. But I like, okay, I'll go get like a coffee. I'll go to a coffee shop. I'll dress up cute. I'll do all these things. Like I wanted to make it so ceremonial, so devotional. And then
Mhm.
when I got came back to America, same thing. It was like very devotional. I was very committed to it. And I started to see that, like, it doesn't need to be 7 days a week, full on. It can be as simple as, like, I can now write a whole novel on deadline with a major publishing house because in 2018, I realized I could write every Friday.
I love that. So huge. Huge life lesson right there. Just do the thing. For
It
me, to write takes a half an hour of filling my coffee and sitting back down and switching the laundry and sitting back down and petting my dog and remembering something and making a note on my phone and oops, now I'm on social media for a half an hour and then 20 minutes of writing follows.
That's the
So,
clearing the cobwebs. Like, it's thing.
yeah.
It's look, it's okay, but I think what happens is people they think like, okay, for like if I don't want to go on a walk, then that means I shouldn't go on the walk. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, go on the walk within 2 minutes. You'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I went on this walk.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just weird how much
Mhm.
we buy into our own like tantrums that it's like, of
Their
course
own
we want to
bullshit,
be
really.
comfortable.
Resistance to what's good for us or what we actually
Exactly.
want.
We
We
don't
don't
want
yeah.
effort. It's all
Mhm.
effort. It's like, I just rather not. And like the thing is that I noticed in my own life that like when I start buying into my excuses and I don't want to take effort, I get more and more unhappy, more and more miserable, more and more frustrated. And then when I start putting back in the effort, it's like everything becomes more you're the more effort you take, the more effort that you can give. I don't know, it's
Yeah.
bizarre. It's
Yeah.
like if you start your day like the way that you wanna start it and you're keeping promises to yourself, you just keep keeping the promises to yourself, not as like you can't buy into those excuses. And I let myself off because I'm like a nice person to myself. For the most part, I would let myself off the hook way too much. And I was like, but I'm letting myself off the hook to an extent that like I'm not happy. And
You're
so it
not
was
nice.
very it was a bizarre thing to kind of realize how much resistance I was giving myself, how much I resist things that are good for me, how much I let those excuses pile up. And then now I just see I'm like, I just don't see any value in them much anymore. So it's become like things that used to be very, very hard don't feel as hard anymore.
You're getting
And
sure, because
yeah,
motivation follows action. We forget
yeah.
that. We think we're gonna wanna go for a walk before we put our shoes on. Well, we don't. But like you said,
No. Even
right?
if you like it, even
Yeah,
if
even it
you're telling yourself, you're like, "I like it," it's still it's just we are I wish I and there's probably some biological reason that someone has already discovered, but, like, just the way that we want to exist in, like, an ease state,
yeah.
and yet putting in effort is so good. Like, I almost feel like the lockdown sort of gave me a little bit too much. I don't know. It's like, I'm not a workaholic by any means, but I know that when I'm present and engaged and working and, you know, efforting and cooking and doing the things, I'm happier. I'm just happier when I'm on my routine and I'm like putting in the work. And
Yeah.
yet, I don't know. I think there's a lot of not doing like, I mean, just the fact that not to shade anyone because I've done my share of being on the couch, but it's like we're in this like time where everybody's talking about bed rotting
Yeah.
and rotting on the couch. And I'm like, and then what gets me is like in the same breath, it'll be like, but I don't know why I'm so depressed.
Right.
And it's like, I think it's because you're rotting in bed. Like a little bit. And there's
Yeah.
also things
Oh,
that
it's just
factors.
so much right. It's like, did you have fresh air? Did you move your body? Did you eat something healthy? Have you connected with a friend? Maybe you need a shower. I mean, a shower can cure a lot of things.
Right, and, like, I just don't I think sometimes, especially in the mental health conversations, which, like, I do not have perfect mental health, I will be the first to say that, but there's also I have to run through that list because
Mm,
it won't cure everything doing those things and caring for myself, but also making an excuse that I can't do those things or there's something preventing me from doing those things is definitely far worse for my mental health than seeing how I feel when I do take that time. Like there unfortunately, I've really had to come to the conclusion that like I cannot be on autopilot and just be okay. I have to invest into myself and my care. Otherwise, my brain goes to the worst anxiety.
mhm.
I do slip into depression. It is not like smooth sailing. Some people that they don't have that. They don't have it. And so for me, I a few days of being too like chill and football and yeah, that exterior, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I feel this way? Why is the world ending? And I'm like, oh, go for a walk, Jamie. Like,
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
something. Like, take some action. You know,
Shift
um,
the energy and talk about confidence or self-belief. Like doing those things keeps your promises to yourself too. Doing the things, even though you don't feel like it, you don't want to, pushing out of your comfort zone to do something you kind of don't want to do. It's like says, I'm showing up for myself. It's another way to say, I trust you. I keep my promises to you. You know, you are worthy of time and space and action and energy and all those things too.
exactly. I mean, I think about it, I think about my relationship with myself a lot, because it's as any relationship, you can't just put it on, just let it sail, you
Right.
gotta put in effort. And I think, there was a time where I think these conversations were happening more. But now I don't know, I think we're in a weird time with mental health of where the conversation is, how we're talking about it, how we're talking about caring for ourselves. It's like people get offended very easily about certain things that to me are like benign statements. I think we're excusing a lot. I think we're disconnected from people a lot. We're disconnected from like simple things like nature and being off these things, being
Right.
on this for a while, you know? Like, unfortunately, we're just, uh, there's some things that I'm just like, these are a little bit simpler actions. Cause exactly what you said, like, as much as it's like I'll see people be like, "I don't feel confident," but they're also, like, bed rotting or not keeping those promises, and it's like, it's very hard to think your way into confidence because, um, I started to even recognize I could have self-belief when I started showing up for myself and keeping my promises, and I was like, "Oh, I could actually create like, this energy for myself, which is what
Yes.
and I am in control of my actions for the most part. So it's like, I can one action taken when I have resistance gives me, like, it's like more momentum in the direction of, like, I'm confident. I can believe in myself. I can do things. I can do the
Right.
hard things.
Yeah.
And I think, like, we're in a time of perhaps too much thinking, too much consuming,
Yeah, for sure.
and not enough doing. Like,
Sure.
you need
I'm
to
all
do
about it.
things,
Yeah. A
Like, you need
transformation,
to
it
do things.
happens by doing. And that means, um, also paying attention to not how does it look, but how does it feel? It might
Right.
not even how am I gonna post this? How am I gonna make this look right?
Fun.
How
Yeah.
does it feel within me? Recognizing that. And the action, I love it. We learn by doing. And also then that means failure. It means I hope if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. Probably, right? Like that's how we learn. We can learn by failure. So you should get rejected. That's part of the process, right? Trust the process. Not everybody loved that book on first round or whatever. Good. Go again, go again, go
Right.
again. You have this relentless belief in yourself that I'm going to get this book published. This book is good. It's my words and it needs to get out into the people that need to read it. I'm not going to stop and crumble at one little no. I'm going to keep pushing, right?
Yeah. I think that's everything because if you don't have that grit, I mean, and if you view failure as like a failure of yourself, I mean, it's just impossible to get anywhere. Like to me, I love experimenting because I have like a million ideas all the time. I think most people who have any creativity, they do too.
Mhm.
Um, I love finding out that I can take one thing out of my brain that I no longer need to think about anymore. Okay,
Mhm.
I experimented. I saw that idea through. It happened this summer actually with something that I was gonna do. It was we were all on board. I was gonna partner with someone. It was gonna happen. And then it like dissipated. And I was like, okay, now I can take that out. Now I don't have to think about that.
Right.
And that's great because I think if you are constantly in the thinking about things mode,
Mhm.
not getting any useful information, obviously, because
Mhm.
everything, when you don't experiment, like everything sounds like a great idea in your head, or you think it's going to be so much easier than it is. Like, I finally started writing novels essentially because I was like, I need to get this out of my head. Like, what if I don't even like doing it?
Right.
Hate it. What if I find that writing a novel is so torturous that
Mhm.
I never want to do it? Then I
Yep.
don't have to think about doing this anymore. And I can enjoy people's novels. Because
Right.
right now, I'm not enjoying anyone's novels because I'm jealous that they wrote
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I'm not writing my own. So I'm not even enjoying that. And what happened was I did write a novel. It will never see the light of day. I call it my novel zero. And it proved to me and showed me, I was like, when I got rejections for that, and when I read it back and I was like, "Jamie, this is not good. There's no scenes. Like, there's scenes that go by with no dialogue. Jamie, come on, we need to work on this." And all I felt was, I wanna be really good at this.
Yeah.
Man, I have, like, that fire. I'm like, "Okay, I'll read the books. I'll read the craft. I'll figure out how to, like, put story together. I'll read about dialogue. I'll read books and then really notice this time what's working, what's not." And
Mhm.
that fire was what propelled me, and I was like, I would never have known that. You
Mhm.
know that until you do it. And
Mhm.
yet we think we're gonna know when we have it all in our head, and it's like, our thinking is so inaccurate.
Right.
My thinking, that's why it's like, "Okay, I'll start Monday." It's like, because you're giving your Monday self way too much credit.
Totally. And try. It's not the trying that gets you there. It's the trying
Right.
again and again and
Exactly.
again. You're not it's not a one and done for most people. And
No.
no, I think very few people go viral. Like most people have been pounding the stone for a long time or working on something for a long time. But you now are where you wanted to be, where your past self wanted to be. So it's like you keep hitting the finish line or the summit of the mountain, or you got the carrot and then the carrot moves. You're like,
Mhm.
when I one book, but now you got to do another book. Now you have 10,000 followers. Now you need 100,000. Now you got 100,000. You need a gazillion, right? And it's never enough. We know that, like, basically, right? So, how have you settled in now with your self belief and your self doubt? Where are you at on a truly to find content in the here and now and what is versus that carrot that just keeps moving?
I think where I'm at is I'm now, and this isn't in radically content because I've had to learn this post radically content, because I wrote radically content thinking none of my dreams are coming true. I'm not, I wrote that as a sort of response to that. And then it was like, bring everything. was like, this is weird. All these things started happening. But I'm
It was
now
the manifestation. The book was the manifestation of what was yet to come.
exactly. I was like,
I'll
grippy.
put this into the universe and then it'll
Yeah.
happen.
I had to learn a whole new thing, but now I'm seeing, I'm separating it. Like, okay, I have my work. Like, I have my work, and
Right.
yes, what I'm noticing is in my work, because I'm an ambitious person and because I like challenges, when I get something, it only makes me realize how much more I want to explore and create and experiment. And, the more that you think you're capable and the more that you can take action without that hesitancy, the more it opens up to you. So it's like, okay, there's my work. Now I have my worth over here. That doesn't get to it's like this is unconditional.
Mm.
So I can fail, and that doesn't mean anything about who I am as a person. That's just information for my work,
Yeah.
and having this separation where before it was I was all everything could blow down my confidence or keep my confidence. It's like was
Yeah.
too enmeshed.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, I can separate these things because I'm good where I am. I do not believe that, like, I know for a fact that getting certain things is not going to bring me everlasting happiness. It's a really beautiful thing. There's amazing things going on behind the scenes that I can't even speak about yet, but it's dreams coming true. It's amazing. But it's also, I could have self-doubt on the same day that those things are happening. And I'm like, okay, so that's the messiness of this,
Yeah.
of trying and caring, really caring so much and wanting things so much and not hedging and saying, well, I don't really want it, or okay, like, I want,
Yep.
and okay. But the not having doesn't get to tell me I'm not worthy, or it doesn't get to take my foundation from myself. Like, there's a foundation there of, if nothing happens, I'm gonna be okay. So now
I
it's just
love that.
like, it's fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun, but it's also like, I can get really disappointed. And, like, I never used to I was so, like, scared of all of it that it was like I didn't let myself care enough, and then I wouldn't,
Mm.
because I was so scared, like,
Protection.
Yeah,
Protective.
protection. If
I
I
don't have that
fail
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, if I fail, then I didn't really care that much. I didn't really give it my all. And
Right.
now, like, because I have this foundation of, like, I'm confident, I love myself, I trust myself, I'm not gonna let that get I'm not gonna let that foundation get touched. That's just not it. Like, my foundation is the radically content, right?
Yeah.
But
Solid.
then I now feel and see that I have more capacity to give a shit. Like,
Mhm.
over the summer, there was something that it actually ended up going through, but there was a moment where it seemed like I might have to let this go, which was like unbelievable to me. And I let myself be so upset about it. Like I was crying. I was crying about it. And not like a crier typically.
Mhm.
I mean, to my own detriment, I love crying. I actually think it's so amazing. I wish I could cry more.
It's one of my top talents, to be honest.
I'm jealous. I love
All right. I know.
it. But I let myself get really disappointed, and I was like, "Okay, I'll be okay.
Mm.
This doesn't go through, but I'll be devastated if it doesn't go
Totally there.
through. But even if I'm devastated, I'll still be okay." And to me, that was not a thing on the table for a very long time. Like, that would have been I am unworthy as a human being type of thing. Like my world's ending. And to be able to have that separation where I can have big, audacious dreams, I can care a lot, I can be kind of obsessive about it, but I also have a whole life outside of that where you know I mean I have family, friends, husband, they don't care if they just want to see me happy. So it's like that to me is so important, and there's things outside of my work that I care about so much. And I don't know, for me that was very important because I think having my work and my self-worth so enmeshed and having my achievements so enmeshed with my worthiness as a person and going up and down with that. Now when I compare something happens, I'm like, it's just because you care. That's okay. It's not a crime to care. You're allowed to care, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, I think sometimes, especially in the spiritual world, I get of course, I believe in surrendering and letting go. And that is very important. We can't be too grasping. But at the same time, I find that some of the stuff, the detachment, I'm like, I don't want to be detached.
Mhm.
I want to care. That's to me, detachment is almost like apathetic. And
Yeah.
and I I spent a lot of time not caring, a little too disconnected. And so now I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to have anxiety waiting for an email that you want. You know,
Well
like
done. Very appropriate response. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a normal thing.
Yeah.
It's okay to be impatient and want it yesterday, but still be centered and grounded and present. I don't know, I guess it's just that feeling of being able to straddle multiple, what seems like conflicting emotions, but really it's just like being human
Yeah.
and not turning your emotions off. Or what you were saying about when you stopped drinking, it was about not turning to something outside of yourself.
Mhm.
Like this, I'm like, it's okay if I get sad. Like it's okay if I think what you and I similar themes is I'm not willing, I won't abandon myself this time.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
okay, that means I can get super disappointed and heartbroken because I'm not going to hate myself because of that or take that on as my failing as a person, which is, it seems like, well, obviously, it seems very simple, but
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
we'll try it.
Yeah. Like, I will be devastated because I cared, and that's gonna hurt a lot, but I'm not gonna stop caring. This is how I live life out loud. This is how I express myself. This is how I feel. The whole spectrum of emotions, all of it. And that's what's variety is for me, just having the guts to live my life raw and unfiltered. And it means the ups and the downs, but I'm here for it all. So totally. What I love what you said though, first of all, like as an entrepreneur myself too, and owning my own business, it's like, what if dish fittering failed? I will still be okay. It doesn't matter. That's not my only thing. That's not my only, even if it failed miserably, hasn't yet. Thank goodness there's people that want my help and I love to help. But even without that, it's not who I am. It's not the only piece of me. But with that, with you, with your writing, it's like that's what makes you unstoppable now because you can throw yourself into it and you're and with 100%, not 50%, because what if it doesn't go through and you're going to protect yourself saying, I didn't care? You're gonna throw you can fail if you must, but if not, you'll fly, right? Like, you can throw yourself in and you are creating your own flywheel of energy. It's to you, from you, with love. It's coming from yourself. You're more energized. You're taking greater risks. You're having greater that's what is making you soar, actually, versus playing small in every other way because you're afraid. You're still afraid and you're doing it anyways, right? You're gonna give a fuck and you're gonna
Right.
keep going instead of protecting yourself saying, I don't really care, you know? And
Right.
with
And
or without any more achievements in the writing world, you are on solid ground. You with
yes,
yourself and your
that's
whole
how I feel. And I didn't have that before. So when main character energy came out, I felt like that threw me for such a loop last year. I was like, oh, I'm not on solid ground. Like, this is still determining
Mhm.
the worth. And I couldn't even see what was good happening, like it felt like I had failed and
Mm.
but I hadn't. It was so weird. And I was like, okay, I'm aware there is something happening here that like I'm too business minded to know that this failed.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah, you
this
can't even like trick yourself with your own
no,
inner critic.
no. And then it was but I noticed how much it was enmeshed and I gave myself a lot of grace, and now it feels like more solid footing. And it was interesting in the solid footing because for so long I thought, okay, to get to like be able to do this work, I need to be able to detach and not care. And I thought that was where I was heading.
Mhm.
And then it was like such a plot twist to show me that like, no, it means like you get to care and you get to experience something so fully, but you don't have to make that mean anything about who you are, which is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah, that's
I mean everything about who I am.
right, right. Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. You inspire me so much. Even like following you on Instagram, knowing a writer, like you are where you wanted to be. Your past self, like this is what you prayed for. And
Yeah.
you're a working writer with published works, with excellent books, beautiful talent, a following of loyal readers, me included. Like you wanted to be here and you're here. So I hope you can recognize and acknowledge that. Also, there's always a next thing, there's always another mountain to climb or something, but you have arrived in a lot of ways in one spot, and it keeps building the blocks for what comes next for you. But
I appreciate you saying that. That's so kind. I do. I really feel that at least once a day, I'm like, I did it.
you
Like,
did
I
it.
did it. There were
You
sometimes
already
I didn't think
yeah.
that I had done it. I was gonna do it. So I'm like, okay, I did it. And so it puts some things into perspective when I start to get kind of like too attached and too anxious that I'm like kind of losing my focus. I'm like, you already did it. So
You
now
already done
we're
it.
just now we're just playing in the sandbox. Like it's okay.
Yeah. And have fun with it. Enjoy this process. I can't wait to see what comes next, of course. And thank you for your time and your wisdom and your always your open heart and sharing and your ability to share like what you're working on and this self-doubt, self-belief. It's huge. I think it's in all of us. So I've learned from you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jamie.